never fear. We're still going to be deep, 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 deep in the basement with Mr. Arthur Turnbull. Okay. A show of hands. How many are drunk?
My presentation is on the Aftershows that took place during the Lovesexy 88 tour. There were 9 shows altogether in 5 different countries. That was the open for the last show that took place, actually in San Francisco, but it was Oakland, of these after shows that happened in 1988. That performance was November the 11th, somewhere around 2:30, 2:35 in the morning. A show that I was, and I don't believe in luck, but I was damn lucky to get into because I was 17 years old. And I'll get to a little bit of that later, but how many have been to an after show, a Prince after show? Okay. How many people have been to an 88 after show? Okay. What city? Just shout it out. You okay? You were at the Roseland. Everybody was at the Roseland? Okay. Okay. All right. The highly orchestrated Lovesexy tour that we've heard so much about was just that, highly orchestrated, precision, to the point where yesterday Kat Glover said if you didn't make your mark right, you really physically could get hurt. The after shows were just the opposite of that. They were very dressed down. In many cases, the touring instruments could not fit on the stage. Dr. Fink always had one synthesizer with him. Sheila E. generally had a smaller rented kit because her touring kit just frankly could not fit on the stage. And in one example, Bonnie Boyer was without keyboards because her keyboards couldn't fit on the stage. And what this allowed for Prince was to be able to have a more direct connection with his fan base. My understanding is that roughly 300 people can fit in this room. If we had all 300 people and maybe about 50 to 100 more, that would be the size of like the smallest concert that actually happened during this period. And I'll get to that. And being at this show that I was at, it really, I mean, I was already a Prince fan. I'd been a Prince fan at that time for, I don't know, 10 years or so. No, maybe not that long, maybe like 8. But still, I had seen the Purple Rain show, but I'd seen nothing like this. I saw nothing like an after show. And the nothing like meant you saw a rock star outside of the bubble. And that was very different. And you saw him interacting with you because he could see you. He could see you on your phone, Tasha. He could see you all the way in the back. And you could react to that. He could hear you even without a microphone, depending on your proximity to it. And what that did is that just completely personalized the experience of being a Prince fan, because even though you have this mythic figure, a man that built his own myth, built and maintained his own myth. He was a terraformer. We all know Lovesexy was an excellent example of him building a world and having us all invited into it and exist within it. But now you'd be able to touch him. You could see him. You know, you could see his shadow walking on the stage and things like that. He would talk to his lighting tech. He would talk to the sound man. And he would do this within the pattern and the rhythm of the music, all right? So that was just a very different experience. And what I'm going to attempt to do is cram an overview of 9 shows in 17 minutes. All right, Paris. My French is bad, my Dutch is bad, my German is bad, but I'm gonna do my very best. This is the club Le Bon Douche, and it's located in Paris. And as you can see, that's the sidewalk, that's the street. And the sidewalk there, and it's France, so the sidewalk is about as wide as this podium. And I'm really not exaggerating too much, but it's about as wide as this podium. And, you know, if you weren't paying attention, you would literally miss it. The club itself started out as a bathhouse, and it was opened in the late 19th century. And it was transformed into a concert venue in 1978. And it became a very exclusive spot for the celebrity elite. And we don't have any known audio of this performance. But my best source that I could find was a Belgian journalist, a respected Belgian journalist, Thierry Colon, who wrote for Le Soir, which is a widely read newspaper in Paris. And after the first Parisian concert in the main stadium, he attended a private party. Prince attended a private party on an island called Bois du Dolnèche, which is, I guess it's just outside of the suburbs, about 15 minutes outside of the edge of Paris. And he went to this party that was hosted by a model or some movie actress or something like that, you know. And he came there basically to kill time, because until preparations were made that they would be ready for a stage at Le Bon, he was waiting around. And going to that show, there was, and there's no known audio again, it was kind of a bare bones set. Mavis Staples was there. There's a rumor that, and substantiated, but there's a rumor that Jean-Baptiste Mondino was there and that he filmed some of the performance, but no video has surfaced. So, moving on. We come to, oh, forgive me. This is the only known picture that I was able to find of Prince at Le Bon performing. I tried my best to find the images that were related directly to the performance itself. Okay, so things pick up. We get to London. And Camden Palace, very famous venue that still exists, but under a name. Today it's known as Coco's. And it holds about 1,600 people. Oh, excuse me. And as you can see on the right, this gives you a reasonable idea of what the interior is like. So people are really packed in and they're stacked, like 2 or 3 balconies high. The left is probably an approximate view of what the club looked like back in 1988 as well. Now this was it was modeled as a party. And this was likely a Warner Brothers sponsored party, an industry event, and a lot of celebrities came out. There were, Eric Clapton was there. Mavis Staples was there, you'll see her in a minute. Mickey Rourke came, Sinead O'Connor came. Ron Wood from the Rolling Stones came, and as I believe we saw in one of the videos in here, but Ron Wood played with him, played a version of Miss You. And a lot of these clips can also be seen on YouTube as well. The interesting thing about not Mavis Staples, forgive me. The interesting thing about Misha that you don't get when you listen to the recorder, and there is an incomplete bootleg that is available, was that Prince actually spotted her in the audience. When you listen to the recording of it, because he mentions her name, you think that he's bringing her on the stage to sing. But no, he actually passes her the microphone. Okay. I could have done the whole thing on this particular show. We come to the venue called Parfumtoye, otherwise known as the Trojan Horse. This is the site of the famous Small Club show. I need to really credit. I was put into contact with a Dutch journalist named Edgar Cruz, who researched. He wrote a book, a near 300-page book on Prince's career just in the Netherlands and all that he did. And I was put in contact with him, and I purchased the book, which is all in Dutch, by the way. But this got great photos, but it's all in Dutch. But I was put in contact with him, and we corresponded through email. And he sent me some of his manuscript, again, in Dutch. And I got to tell you, Google Translate really works. The tools that are integrated really works. And he offered to, hey, run through this, Arthur. Any kind of contextualization that you need, let me know. And we had this discourse, So a great deal of what I'm about to tell you, particularly the detail of it, is due to him in his research. So I really want to acknowledge him, and I do hope he's watching the live stream. So the club itself, again, you could walk past it and not really know that this was a nightclub. It holds about 700 people, roughly, and this on the right here. So this is the stage, okay? And so we're looking from a stage view out, and the club has been remodeled somewhat, but this is roughly, this is pre-remodeling, but this is roughly what Prince saw at that club. And so what you see behind the black veils there, one balcony going up to two balconies. Left and right are bars, kind of like how a House of Blues layout would look. And after his second Netherlands Stadium performance, Prince wanted to play again. He wanted to do another show, and there were clubs that were scouted in Amsterdam. But because Prince and the group and the band, everyone was staying in The Hague, it made a little bit better sense to, hey, let's look around that area and see if we can find a club. So Prince's promoter contacted the manager of the Trojan Horse, a man named Herbert Boerdonk, Boerdonk. The club was available with a couple of caveats. One, their audio system hadn't been used for a few months, so they had to set that up. They knew they needed to get together what's referred to as backline. But that they also had to secure a drum set because, again, the stage was just entirely too small to house Sheila's touring kit. Prince also wanted the bars closed. Again, 1 and 2. So when people enter, they enter down through here, and then they go into this main area. So while the concert's happening, you've got people that are well, they're not streaming in yet. So let me back up a little bit. While the concert is happening, preparations are still being made to actually get the venue together. Sorry. Okay, this is actually interesting, so I want to make sure I get these notes right. So here's a day. It's a concert day, right? Earlier, we saw photos. This one in particular on the left, right? This photo shoot was actually done the same day that the small club show happened. So while this photo shoot was happening, the club was being prepared, but also Prince's team came into the club and searched the club. They were taken into the basement. They were taken through a backstage. They were taken to every other room in the venue, even unscrewed light bulbs, according to Herbert, the manager, even unscrewed light bulbs looking specifically for any kind of video recording equipment, any kind of audio recording equipment, okay? Now, mind you, obviously we have a bootleg. And one of the reasons that this club show was such a revered bootleg chiefly has to do with the sound quality. It's soundboard quality. The second has to do with some of the music that was played there, and I'll get to some samples. The way that people found out about the show, because it wasn't announced, like many of these shows, there was last minute to no advance notice that anything was going to happen. VIPs were invited, and they received, and I'll have a detail in the next slide, but they received a badge, and people in the audience at various points, for various reasons, for random reasons even, received a card that essentially said, "Are you a sexy MF? And if so, I'll see you here at this club." And what that card, that's clearly visible, what that card entitled you to do was to purchase a ticket, which was roughly, 15 Dutch dollars. So the people that were there it's pretty random. Now, detail of the badge on the left for the VIPs, and on the right, the actual ticket that was used. And because there was no pre-planning for it, it was actually a older unsold Gregory Isaacs ticket with the stamp on the back of it to try to go in and, make this work. Okay, so how do we get the tapes? So Rob Cubby Colby was Prince's audio man, ran live audio for him from 1984 to 89-90, maybe the new tour I think was his last tour, okay? He ran audio that night at the Trojan Horse. No one else was allowed in the booth with him. Prince's people wasn't gonna have it, okay? This gentleman, Kus Nuyens, is whom we have to thank for somehow plugging in an audio recorder into the soundboard. Now, and I'm just gonna exalt him. Brother Kus passed away, died in 2012, so nobody can ask him. Herbert himself has no idea how he was able to manage to get a recorder plugged into the soundboard without Cubby knowing it, and made 2, shout out to TDK, SA90 tapes. Because he was a snob himself, clearly. His role was what's referred to as a pop coordinator. And it's essential to inside sales, outside sales, business to business sales, business to consumer sales, a specialist for a particular channel. And Kus handled the pop channel. Prince was regarded as pop, right? They also had an R&B black music channel, manager, I'm sorry. And again, nobody knows how. Kus made it happen. Kus got 2 tapes. And within, I don't know, a couple months maybe, we had a litany of copies. And the more popular variants of this is what I had first found on vinyl. This is the Dance Music Sex Romance box set. Small Club, second show that night, Small Club. This is the more popular variant of the cover art here. Now, another reason, because I alluded to the fact that there were a couple of reasons why the show is so famous, and it does have to do with the music that was played. So the very first song from the show, it's labeled as instrumental jam. Sometimes it's called instrumental in G. And jam really does it a disservice, because what you're actually hearing is, you're hearing the best example of at least in his classic period, fully improvisational Prince. And I did guest on one of D'Angelo's podcasts, and we were talking about Madhouse, and I was talking about how Madhouse, technically it wasn't jazz. It was fusion, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the reason why it's not jazz is because in what's known as jazz music, improvisational music, you're really dealing with the communication between the musicians to affect an agenda. So you have to agree upon this agenda, this musical agenda. And so that's what's happening in this first period, in this first song. The song runs about 12 to 15 minutes. And when the show actually starts, you hear Sheila doing a kind of a very expressive drum roll, a very expressive percussive opening. And she's flaring the hi-hat, tapping some cymbals and things like that. What she's actually doing is this is the first time she's ever been on the kit. Her drum technician just finished setting everything up. So she's actually testing out this drum kit all on her own, live, but in a very rhythmic way because, hey, it's showtime. She's been trained by George Duke. She's been trained by her daddy. She knows how to get out of what she needs, but also not at the expense of the audience. And then she starts this percussive beat on her snare drum, on the rims of her snare drum. And then you'll hear Dr. Fink come in. And then you'll start to hear Levi Ceasar on bass. come in. Now, from the I almost said customer, from the audience standpoint, they don't really know who's coming on, at least the non-VIPs. They think it's going to be Prince, but they're not really sure. But the stage is still dark, and they're starting to hear this music, okay? I told you the song itself lasts about a good 12 to 15 minutes. Prince is not seen on stage for the first 7 minutes of the song. When you hear his guitar, he's actually playing off stage and plays off stage for a solid 5 minutes. And people start to think, hey, is this Prince? This sounds like Prince. I don't know, I can't see. And then at a certain point, and this is where I start to get into my excerpt, you'll start to hear the crowd react because the people that are in front are the ones that you're actually hearing through the microphones that's picking up by the recording. And they're starting to react to the fact that, wait a minute, I'm close enough that I can see a shadow of a little man. Okay? The outfit that Prince was wearing was very different than the outfit that he wore at Camden, which was much closer to what he wore on stage. I called him back. I said, hey, you might want to check this out. I think we got something here because my guy Edgar told me that people saw Prince in a sheer outfit coming out using his, I can't pronounce the name of it, but this Oswald Model C guitar, whereas Camden, he had the teal, Purple Rain style guitar, and that he had on this cape, So after some deliberation, it was sent off to Edgar. Edgar conferred with Prince Vault. Prince Vault got updated. Somebody called me and said, yep, you know what? We are 99% sure this is actually from the small club performance. Now, why is that important? Well, the reason why that's important is because Prince deserves accurate documentation. And before his death, but especially after his death, many of us, including myself, fell victim to captions that got wrong, that got printed in major publications even after they were corrected. And these same people would not let this happen to David Bowie. It wouldn't happen to Bowie because Bowie is worth it. And this is why, as wonderful of an introduction as D'Angela gave me, this is why this is important. Because this is not just a safe space, but an integral space to be able to have these kinds of discussions, to be able to have this kind of discourse, one to the other. So that's why this is important. So we're going to call this a world premiere at your conference. And by the way, we found another one too. This was also from part, people documented an outfit change and a guitar change that Prince made. And in the second half of the show, he brought Bonnie out. And let me say, Bonnie Boyer, she was featured heavily in every show. There was always a segment of every after show where Bonnie Boyer would come out and she would take lead. And so Prince would showcase her heavily. He changed to his purple outfit, switched his guitar up. So we found 2 photos from part. Now, another interesting thing about this performance was that there was a debut of a song, more of an idea, really, that Prince wrote reportedly the night before or 2 nights before. And we know that was possible because I've seen some of his writers, and every hotel that he stayed at, he would request a grand piano be hoisted up into the room. And this song is called People Without, and the lyrics, I think he was kind of sketching out his ideas, but it follows the same Black Album to Lovesexy, Cross the Line theme that was happening for him during this period, and talking about people without do these things, these illicit things, do cocaine, have sex without love. But people without, well, the implication is people without God, people without some spiritual center. I edited this because it is a longer song, but I wanted you to get an idea of the opening of it and a part of the transition that's about maybe 6 minutes thereafter. Now, this is Prince, Levi Caesar, Sheila E. on a completely dark stage. They did this in the dark. One thing about that too, it's very likely that Sheila nor Levi had heard that song before, so he's counting this off, in real time. Let's jump to the next show that happened in Hamburg, Germany. Grow the Freiheit. I didn't do that very well. Hard to say. Roughly on the low end, 500, 600, 700 people that were in attendance. Holds much more than that. Interesting thing about this venue, it's actually a very famous venue. In fact, the name Grow the Freiheit, but the name is actually a street, a very famous street in Hamburg. The club is on the left in the smaller. The exterior of the club is in the smaller photo. This is the interior of the club looking from the stage. So you've got this wide vista that's happening here. Of all the European aftershows, and really of all these aftershows in total, this show itself was structured most like a concert, where you had a piano section in the middle, and then you had sort of a highlight of a guest that would also come on. So you kind of got both of the experience, sort of an alternate Prince concert, and an after show spontaneous experience, all rolled up into one. In the interest of time, I'm gonna skip the video that I have, which is a cameo by, not a cameo, but a special guest of Taylor Dane. Everybody remember Taylor Dane? Okay, it's like, what's she doing at a Prince concert? Well, she was at a Prince concert. But one thing I wanted to note too, this is a photo of him there at this performance. This is obviously the entrance of the club, but if you can look above the G, you'll see Prince in red, referring to this show. So many of us have heard People Without, what I just played, because it's from the small club bootleg. How many people have heard the second version of People Without? Okay. He did this second version that I'm about to play. It's part of a piano set. So to give you this idea of how Prince was actually creating in the open and getting an idea of what audience engagement was going to be like. Let's go to, yeah. I skipped over Chanhassen because there's really nothing to see, folks. Move it along. It was a party under a tent in the Paisley Park parking lot. Maybe a big highlight was Wendy and Lisa did come and sang Girls and Boys with him. So after 18 months, they started healing wounds. Okay, Roseland. This is Wade in the Water, done in this beginning section here. Patti LaBelle is in background. So this is where he gets a little more overt in extending the Lovesexy experience and the message and the themes to the after show stage. Okay, I'm gonna jump out. Boston was the next show, in a place called City, long been closed. This photo of it. Beautiful thing about this show is that it was turned into a benefit for a student that was killed. The student's name was Frederick Cameron Weber, and he was a saxophonist pianist, a freshman at Berklee College of Music, who was struck by a car and killed while waiting in line to purchase tickets for the Worcestershire Lovesexy concert. Prince found out about it after the fact. The date for this event had already been on the tour itinerary, but just not announced until, a couple days in advance. But once he found out about it, Prince donated more than $30,000 of proceeds from the show to a scholarship that Berklee had established in the student's name. Okay, the Palace, Hollywood, now known as Avalon. Final show. Warfield Theater, San Francisco, California. Prince constantly referred to the audience as Oakland. What's happening in Oakland? What we going to do? Oakland, where is that Oakland? Somebody said, hey, we're in San Francisco. And as Harold said, well, hey, Prince was like, you look like you're from Oakland. You from Oakland? Didn't skip a beat with it. I did attend this show. Myself, a friend of mine named Darren McManwala. I hope he's watching. I wrote about it on Medium. You can go home and getting to see Prince is what I told my friend after we had stood outside of the Warfield with tickets, but wasn't allowed to get in because it was, in fact, a 21 and over show. The way it worked was that I ended up meeting Tasha Weaver, who is Miko Weaver's sister. I had a part-time job at a law firm, and she was a paralegal. And when the Lovesexy tour was coming to Oakland, I started talking about it because I was so excited. And she was like, oh, you like Prince? Well, my brother plays for him. I'm like, so she was like, well, hey, he's playing this after show. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm too young. I can't get in. She's like, oh, you can come in with me. All you need are tickets. Well, it turned out that the next day, without any request, and I didn't even know about it, but she came in, she gave me a cassette tape, and it was the Black Album. So I had the Black Album in November of 1988. So I was God almighty at my high school. But I did detail it much more accurately and much more detail in the post on Medium. But suffice it to say, I took that Black Album, I made a copy of it, I went to a Ticketmaster, and I told the guy, hello, I got this Black Album. You can have it. Just look the other way when I show you an ID that does not say that I'm 21 so I can buy these 21 tickets. He did. Oh, yeah. So the outside of the Warfield, I basically stood like right on the left corner, the bottom left corner, outside, screaming, begging, crying to be let in because the bouncer was like, you're not 21, you're not getting in here. I don't care who you say you're with. Long story, but Tasha did not attend that show after the Lovesexy concert. And let's just say once she got home, she took her shoes off and put her legs up on the couch. Once that happens, she stretches out, it's a wrap because she wasn't going out anymore. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but we gotta figure out how to get it. So, this was flipping this, I know, right? This was interior of the Warfield, traditional theater. This actually, it was kind of cool because this roughly was my view. The way it went was, California has a law that after 2 a.m., any establishment can no longer serve alcohol. So what I can ascertain, because I wasn't told directly, what I can ascertain was that because it was after 2, because I actually had valid tickets, and because I stood out there for 2.5 hours looking real sad, a manager came and got me, brought me in, escorted me to 2 seats, my friend and I, and he said, you all sit here. If I see you out of these seats before the show's over, you're out. And we saw ourselves a show. Actual photos from the after show, the Warfield after show, which incidentally was the original shot with him at the piano that I used at the top of my talk. And I do want to give credit to Jay Blakesberg. These are his photos. I paid for these too. And he also shot the Lovesexy show. And that's it. We have it.